All right, let's jump straight into this explainer and untangle the highly complex web of modern Iran. We're cutting right through the standard headlines and political rhetoric today to look at the raw economic and geopolitical realities driving one of the most pivotal nations on the map.
Here's our roadmap. We're going to kick things off with geopolitical foundations, then look at current domestic affairs, map out regional strategy and alliances, zoom out to Iran on the global stage, and finally, wrap up by looking ahead.
Okay, Part 1. Geopolitical foundations. So you're probably already familiar with the Strait of Hormuz as a major bottleneck, right? But here is the stark strategic reality. By literally controlling the northern coastline of a shipping lane that's barely 2 miles wide at its narrowest point, Iran essentially holds a chokehold on roughly 20% of the entire world's daily oil consumption. That is massive. Using asymmetric naval tactics, think swarms of fast-attack speedboats, they could cause a severe global disruption in a single afternoon. So this isn't just a geographical quirk, it's literally their ultimate geopolitical insurance policy.
And if you look at the last decade, it has been absolute diplomatic whiplash. Back in 2015, the JCPOA nuclear deal offered a real path to economic integration. But just 3 years later, in 2018, the US withdrew, which triggered this brutal snapback of economic sanctions. And that huge ripple effect brings us right to 2024. We're now looking at an entirely hardened stance from Tehran, rapid nuclear enrichment, and a major aggressive pivot in their overall global strategy.
Moving on to Section 2, Current Domestic Affairs.
Now, this demographic split is absolutely fascinating. Over 60% of Iran's population is under the age of 30. Think about that for a second. That is a massive majority of the country with zero living memory of the 1979 Islamic Revolution, which is literally the foundation of the current state. So you have this highly educated, digitally native youth colliding head-on with a traditional, older establishment, and it's exactly this sharp generational divide that's acting as the engine for the intense social friction we see making global headlines today.
But that demographic friction is happening against the backdrop of some really severe economic suffocation. Cut off from Western banking and global markets, Tehran has basically been forced into building what they call a resistance economy. The catch, trading mostly with non-Western nations, just hasn't been enough to stop a highly volatile downward economic slide. The constant pressure from sanctions is heavy, and it's drastically limiting any real domestic growth.
Over 40% inflation. For that huge youth demographic we just talked about, this isn't some abstract economic metric. It feels like a stolen future. It means recent university grads literally cannot afford basic housing or to start a family, which is effectively hollowing out the middle class. It strips away economic independence and just fuels this relentless, everyday dissatisfaction.
Next up, Section 3, Regional Strategy and Alliances.
Iran's strategy in its own neighborhood essentially operates on 3 distinct levels, which are heavily dictated by its vulnerable mountainous borders. First off, they rely on what's known as the axis of resistance. These are allies and proxy groups in places like Lebanon, Yemen, and Iraq. It's a strategy of forward defense to keep threats far away from Iranian soil. Second, they're in a constant, really tense balancing act with regional competitors like Saudi Arabia, all while keeping an entirely adversarial posture toward Israel. And finally, because of that crushing Western isolation, they've actively pivoted east, locking in strategic partnerships with Russia and China to secure crucial economic, tech, and military lifelines.
Let's zoom out to Section 4, Iran on the global stage.
When it comes to international diplomacy, we are basically looking at a head-on collision of 2 completely incompatible worldviews. On one hand, the dominant Western strategy is pure containment, using aggressive economic sanctions and military deterrence to box Iran in and curb its nuclear ambitions. But if you look at it from Tehran's perspective, this isn't about aggression at all. It's about absolute state sovereignty. It's about securing regional influence to prevent foreign intervention and demanding a sanction-free seat in the global economy. So, what the West views as necessary containment, Iran views as an existential threat. This core conceptual clash is exactly why negotiations remain so deadlocked.
Which brings us to Section 5, looking ahead.
So bringing this all together, why does this macro to micro analysis actually matter to you? Well, there are 3 main reasons. First, your wallet. As long as the Strait of Hormuz is the flashpoint, global supply chains and gas prices are literally one miscalculation away from a massive spike. Second, international security is actively shifting right before our eyes as Iran embeds itself into a broader great power competition with Russia and China. And third, that domestic pressure cooker. When you have a digitally connected,
highly educated but totally disenfranchised youth facing 40% inflation, internal change isn't just possible, it's historically inevitable.
And I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder today. As Iran's massive, frustrated younger generation inevitably ages into positions of power, what path are they going to choose? Will they turn their focus inward to heal a broken economy, or will they double down on the current strategies of regional defiance and international pushback? The answer isn't just going to define the future of Iran, it's going to reshape the geopolitical and economic architecture of the entire world. Keep analyzing the facts, and I will see you in the next explainer.